You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Brommer018. Link in the description. Do it now. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video on our FIFA 20 Custom Tactics series. Brom18 here as always. Thank you for joining me in what is a return. As you'll see, it's been a little bit of time since I've uploaded a video and I wanted to come back with a bang, and we'll be doing that today. As you can see, the tactics videos are under a complete makeover now. Not only will I be showing you the systems on screen, but also, as you'll see, we do have gameplay using this system on the right hand side, as well as we're also going to have little areas where we'll also suggest ideal players for each role as well. So I'm really looking forward to see how this goes. A lot of people have sort of suggested that I do put gameplay in these videos as well. We could see sort of how to play with the tactic and also just how they work and stuff, as well as you know, lots of suggestions about who people should sign. So hopefully that will answer a lot of people's concerns, and we can just generally increase the quality of the videos. And today we're going to switch our focus onto another contemporary tactic, and that is Mikel Arteta's Arsenal system. This is one that has been very popular since he did join in December 2019, and you know, I think it's time to really get onto it today. We've really been waiting a couple of months just so I could nail down the system. I do like to do a lot of research. I like to watch these teams actually, you know, physically in games and do the research so that I can nail it down properly. You know, we don't just sort of do any sort of hit jobs kind of thing. I like to be very thorough, very professional with how we do research. So we've had a couple of months now to really nail down this system, and I think we're in a good sort of situation to get it done now. So yeah, here we go then. We do have a 4-2-3-1 system, and that's what we will be starting with. There are two changes that we are going to make to the positions, and if you've watched any of my tactics videos before, you'll have seen me do this already. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the fullbacks to wingbacks, and what it does really is that not only does it make them more wider when you're in possession, they will really get onto the touchline, but also they generally get further forward, they get into more advanced areas, and you're going to need that considering what we're going to be getting the wingers to do, and we will come on to that when we do talk about their instructions. But apart from that, the you know, it's all very well and good. Keep them as centre mids, etc. Keep everyone in the other positions. So just the wing backs that you'll need changing overall. So with that being said, we can move on to the instructions, and then once we've gone through this, we'll go through the tactics as well. So first off, we do have Leno, and this is a possession-based system really, and it's very attacking. And you know, you see Mikel Arteta carrying over that philosophy that not only you feel like he learned under Pep Guardiola, but also under his playing days. You know, he was a very technically gifted player, and he loved having the ball at his feet, and particularly when he moved to Arsenal as a player, you know, you really got to see that in action, and so his team very much emulates that. And we start off from the back really with Leno. You know, he will play as a sweeper keeper. You've got a fairly high line, but also you've got a keeper who's comfortable on the ball, and it's so important, you know, for teams in these modern days that they do have that in a keeper. And the same with crosses as well. You're trying to replicate the fact that he's more of an aggressive keeper, and couple that in with how, you know, it's fairly hard to defend crosses on this game and defend corners. So with your keeper coming out, they're a little bit overprotected on this game, so it does relieve a bit of that pressure. It will just help you defensively overall. With the centre backs, keep both of these on, well, just as they are, stay back and normal interceptions. You know, do bear in mind, and you might see it during the gameplay that you see on the side, you know, with someone like David Luiz, who is, obviously we'll talk about the questionable ability defensively of this side in a minute, but you know, with David Luiz, obviously he has a lot of question marks surrounding his defensive abilities. But one thing you can't fault him for is, you know, his prowess on the ball. And it's a strange thing to say for someone who does play as a centre-back. But, you know, he does get forward a lot. He brings the ball out of defence and creates a lot of opportunities. And he opens up space for others, because then the opposition midfielders close him down because he's driving into that space. And so, you know, you should bear that in mind as well when you're playing in this system. Try and get one of your centre-backs who's going to be a comfortable ball player, and quite athletic as well. To do that, try and be comfortable with them, try and be confident and bring the ball out of the defence, try and open up passing lanes, etc. by getting the opposition to close you down, and that's something that he's very good at, and it's certainly an underrated element of the Arsenal system with him. In terms of the wing-backs, very self-explanatory. Join the attack and overlap for both of them. Like I say, we're going to move on to the wingers shortly, but they will be cutting inside. So then the wing-backs will generally be creating majority of the width. And in this situation, we do have Saka there. It would, of course, usually be Kieran Tierney or Kolasinac, but usually Kieran Tierney. But, of course, they are... As of recording this, they are injured, and they have been throughout the majority of Arteta's time there. So it has predominantly been Bukayo Saka, but he's slotted into that into that position well, and fair enough to him. It's certainly one that he's adapted to. So we got him there, and the same with Bellerin as well. You've obviously got a very pacey and energetic player who can do that role. Next, we can move on to the two sort of deeper central midfielders. We do have Granit Xhaka and Dani Ceballos here. Now, something that Arteta has been very sort of intelligent with and clever about in this situation. Now, we mentioned the defensive vulnerabilities of this team a moment ago. And, when you've got the personnel available to you, David Luiz, Shkodran Mustafi, Socrates, Bellerin and Kolasinac, it's fair to say there are defensive vulnerabilities that have been highly discussed and highly talked about, in the footballing world. And so if you're Mikel Arteta, you come into this system, you don't really have much time to sort of, much of an opportunity to go and bring in new personnel, to get in quality centre-backs. So what do you do in that situation? Well, you got to be very clever about it. And what they've done here is actually, unlike, say, the Unai Emery days where you'd probably have a couple of central midfielders, and the same with under Arsene Wenger as well. We're more advanced and getting further forward. You've actually got two slightly deeper central midfielders here. But in the one case, and what has been, in particular recently, is you'll have Dani Ceballos into one of those deep roles. Oh, excuse me, you get that back there. You'd have Dani Ceballos along with Granit Xhaka. And the reason you do that is, yes, Dani Ceballos maybe not as defensively capable as someone like Lucas Torreira, for example, or Callum Chambers, who sometimes plays that holding role. But what he does is, he's very good on the ball. He's very good technically. And so, whilst you might think that, that would create more vulnerabilities defensively, what it actually does is it enables you to keep the ball more. It enables you to recycle possession more. And what's the one thing that the opposition can't do when you're in possession? That is score. They can't test those defensive frailties because you have possession of the ball. And that's one of the very intelligent things that Mikel Arteta has done with Ceballos in this role. Now, Xhaka, fairly comfortable on the ball, doesn't do a whole lot. Again, frailties defensively, perhaps overly aggressive. He's got a tendency to be disciplined often in games. So, in this case, I would personally prefer to see Lucas Torreira in this position rather than Granit Xhaka. But you've got these two are fairly comfortable on the ball, and Ceballos very, very good technically. And so it enables you to recycle possession more, and therefore you protect your defence that way by actually having possession of the ball. And that is sort of ties into the whole phrase of, attack is the best form of defence. So it's been a very intelligent sort of transition into this system by Arteta, and very, in a very clever way of doing it. In terms of the roles themselves, they're both going to be the same. You're going to have cut passing lanes for both of them, and the reason being is that when they are in defence, let's say the opposition have it in their defensive half, what they do is they'll just try and keep their shape, and they'll try and cut passing lanes. They'll instigate a counter press, and then afterwards, if they still haven't won the ball back, then they'll sort of bed back into their shape, and then they try and cut the passing lanes and prevent the opposition from playing through them. And the same goes with stay back while attacking as well. We talked about how they're trying to recycle possession. That's really how you get it. You've got these front four, as the main cause, and then the two wing backs as well getting forward. So then Xhaka and Ceballos staying back and be more of a pivot for possession, like a double pivot essentially, is really how you'll see that sort of protection. So with both of them staying back, you do get that emphasis. And you brought on both to cover wing as well, due to the fact that, of course, the two side men on either wings will be going forward. So you do have that opportunity as well, not to get exploited from the counter attack. So next we can move on to the front four. We'll start off with the two wingers. They both have the same roles. Pepe and Aubameyang. First off, come back on defence. Again, because you'll be keeping more possession, generally the goal and sort of what you find the trends are in Arsenal games, that they are generally going to keep more possession than the opposition, of course, depending on the matches and stuff. Maybe, if you're against a Man City, it's a different system. But generally, you're going to have the same thing. And so they shouldn't need to be tracking back on a regular basis because they should have more control of the game. But when they do, like I say, they'll get back into their shape and sort of form like a 4-4-1-1 and sometimes a 4-4-2. So they're going to bed into that midfield role. In terms of the chance creation, their movement, you want to both getting in behind because, of course, they're trying to exploit that pace. And you also have that emphasis on the counter-attack as well as that vertical threat in possession. So you sort of get the best of both worlds in those situations. And the same with cut inside as well. Because you've got Bellerin and Saka creating the width, then you've got these sort of angling their runs. And it helps to support Lacazette, who will also be dropping off. But we will come on to that as well. And finally, 4 crosses you want them both to get into the box. We're essentially looking for the front 4 all to be in the box at any given time in a crossing situation. Of course, they're not always whipping balls in. They're trying to work their openings as sort of the highly the high ability teams do, but again they do have that emphasis and that option as well should they need it. Moving on to Mesut Ozil next. Starting off with defensive support, I mentioned a moment ago how they'll sort of form a 4-4-1-1 or a 4-4-2 when defending. And so you want Ozil on basic defence because then rather than bedding in with the other midfield 4, what he'll do is he'll sort of form a partnership with Lacazette. And what that does is it enables them to move from side to side better and cover those passing lanes. We mentioned how Xhaka and Ceballos are cutting the passing lanes. Well, you're sort of trying to do the same here. And that's the best way that we can replicate it in FIFA. Of course, it isn't 100% efficient because, the tactics system on this game is still fairly basic and it needs a lot of work done. But, it is enough to sort of have that emphasis and be able to try and recreate that situation as best as you can. So with him on basic, it will effectively do that a little bit more efficiently. On support on crosses, obviously getting to the box. We talked about the front 4 getting in, very self-explanatory. But then on positioning freedom, you actually want him on free roam. And what this does is you try and again recreate the fact that with the front 4 being so mobile and moving around so much to try and create as much of a vertical threat as possible, how do you get Ozil to do that? Well, the best way to do it is free roam. Rather than having him sort of stick into position, it becomes a very rigid sort of unpredictable sort of way of attacking on the game. So with free roam, you sort of get him obviously bedding into these different positions and moving around a lot. And not only does it create a mismatch for the opposition in terms of marking, but also you just get him on his toes all the time. And you can try and get him into the game as much as possible. Very much you do want a mobile playmaker. And the one thing Ozil has come into criticism throughout his career, but particularly at Arsenal, is the fact that his mobility, his laziness off the ball. But under Arteta, you've seen it a bit more. I'm guessing because, of course, they did used to play for each other. They got a good relationship. He can get the best out of him. And so you've seen him be a lot more mobile compared to the days under Emery and maybe Arsene Wenger as well. So, get this on free roam and you'll have that vertical passing threat. Finally, with Lacazette up top leading the line, you actually want him on false 9, and the reason being is that because you're going to have him getting into the box anyway because of the fact he's a striker, you will still get that. But with false 9, then what it does is either the centre backs will follow him and man mark him, in which case it allows Aubameyang and Pepe to get in behind, and they'll go through unmarked. Or let's say he drops off and no one picks him up, then he gets the ball and you can work from there. And he's very good technically as well. He's got underrated technical ability. His control of the ball and his shape and the way he receives the ball is impressive, and it's good for a striker in this situation and in this system. So it works out very well, and that's the same with support runs as well. Have him staying central. You don't need him drifting wide because you've already got that width in the team, and you're trying again to fill in as much space as possible on the pitch. So with Ozil free roam, he might occasionally drift out wide, and then you've also got the wing backs as well who create those mismatch options on the wing. So for him, stay central will work out very well. And finally, on defensive support, you want this on basic as well. So now we can move on to the tactics. That rounds off the individual instructions. And first off, we'll start with the defensive areas of the ball. So you want press after possession loss. And again, you know, anyone who watches Arsenal on a regular basis, or even just sometimes, you'll notice this counter press that they do instigate. And you know, it's a big part of their system that, yes, they will instigate that counter press. They'll try and win the ball back when they do lose it. But then, after a few seconds, there it says 7, you know, it can vary a little bit. What they'll do is then they'll regain their shape. And that's what we've been talking about during the player instructions. They'll regain that sort of 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 defensive shape and then form back into that mid-block. And we'll come on to that mid-block. Well, now actually, we'll talk about the depth. You want this on 7 because then you get that sort of high mid-block. With this being on 10, for example, you don't need that because it's not a sort of an extreme pressing tactic. They're very happy in certain situations when they don't win the ball back almost instantly to sort of bed back into their shape and try and win the ball that way, cut out the passing lanes, and then they can hit teams on the counter because they've got so much pace and they're so deadly in those situations. And finally, with the width, you want this on 4. Then you've not got it too narrow. You've still got the option for players to get out wide. And again, that's all about, sort of preventing those passes from the opposition, those vertical passing lanes. With it just a little bit wider, then they can get out a little bit quicker and prevent those situations rather than trying to be overly compact, in which case they do allow the opposition to have a little bit more of the ball. On offense, of course, you want possession. That's very self-explanatory. In terms of offensive width, move this up to 5. So why we go down to 3 is that because you still do occasionally get, let's say, Pepe, for example, he'll come out onto the touchline and then try and get one-on-one with a defender and take them on that way. Again, same with the wing-backs as well. You don't need it too wide because then you sort of lose the compactness in the middle, in the central areas. So there's less short passing options for the central midfielders. But with it on 5, you get that sort of nice balance to work out well. And with players in the box, move this up to 8 because then you do get the 4 that we have spoke about already. Generally, the front 4 getting into the box in those crossing situations. With corners and free kicks, what we do always in these videos is we always move these up to 4 because then what you'll find is you'll have at least 2 defenders back, which is more than enough to deal with the opposition counter attack because they will only ever leave 1 man forward. But then you get more targets in the box as well. And corners are fairly, and free kicks as well, actually, from wide areas. They're fairly hard on this game. You know, they need a bit of working on. So with you having more targets in the box, it just helps you that little bit. To be more of a threat from those situations. So that just about rounds it off for this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think about the structure with the new additions that we've got, of course, with the gameplay on the side and the player suggestions as well. I really hope that you like that addition, and hopefully we can move that going forward. Please do be sure to keep the suggestions coming in. I've got absolutely loads of videos to get through in terms of this tactics series, but if you've got any suggestions, keep them coming in, and I'm very happy to receive them as well. Don't be shy to ask me any questions about the system. If you have any whatsoever, I do try my best to respond to every comment that I can. So if anyone has any queries about the system, then don't hesitate to get at me in the comment section down below. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more regular gaming content, and ring the bell as well so that you get notifications every time I upload. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed it and you want to see more. And on that note, we are going to finish it off there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.